There was a man who was so devoted to the art of massage that he became the best masseur in the world. It took very little time for people to discover his talent, and he was quickly overrun with customers wishing to acquire his services, but he was a humble man. So dedicated to his craft was he that no bribe or offer or payment could corrupt his ethical business model. He served everyone in the order they signed up. First come, first serve, no exceptions. People tried to sway him, of course. Millionaires and billionaires would offer him swaths of riches. Poorer people would offer their bodies. Laborers offered exchanges of goods or services, but he refused them all. Every massage cost exactly the same. Once, after he'd finished his final massage of the day, there was a knock at the masseur's door. Go away, he said to the knocker. I am finished today. Come when it is your turn. But the door opened anyway. The masseur was met with a perfect copy of himself, but not so perfect. The copy looked happier.
Hello, everyone. My name is Sarah Edmonds, and I'm the editor-in-chief of For Page and Screen magazine. I'm here today with Trey Blevins, author of The Best Masseur in the World. Thank you so much for being here with me today.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, of course. So I want to start off with a hopefully easy question. What inspired you to write this piece?
This piece specifically, I had been wanting to write a time travel based story. I had an idea for one independently of this for a comic book that I still hope to write eventually. Um, but it gets very complicated, convoluted with time travel. As I'm sure you know, you've seen time travel movies. Sometimes they don't make any sense.
Mhm.
So I thought I'd write this smaller, shorter thing to try to kind of make sense of it the first time around, get a little practice run of if I can write time travel or not, if I know how to do it. And so I had been wanting to write one, but I didn't have like a concept. The concept was time travel, which is nothing. That can be anything in the world. Um, and so I wasn't actively thinking about it. It was like it'd be nice if I could try to come up with something. And then one day, um, I had had a particularly rough day of physical labor, and my friend was giving me a massage, and I something clicked. I was like, it was just like getting close to the right spots, but not quite the right spots, And it's like, man, if I was doing this myself, and then it fell together. I was like, you know what, that could be something. And then I think I wrote this story like immediately after that. I think I like the massage was done, and I got up and started writing it.
Mhm. Mhm. I love that coincidence, that kind of like kismet of, oh, it just makes sense. Because
Hmm.
yeah, this is not like people who give massages, it's not a very common career to see in fiction, like
No, no, I guess it wouldn't be.
Mhm. Yeah, it's a little random, but it works really, really well because like you were saying, time travel so complex. So you end up in these loops and
Hmm.
confusion. And this is so self-contained and in a way that is so mundane in that it's like, oh yeah, people
Yeah,
get massages as a career. Um, it just is so unique in that fact.
I
Uh,
always really think about when I'm writing, I focus on the jobs a lot because it's easy and you do see it a lot and you'll see it more if you start thinking about it. A lot of things, the protagonist is a writer. It's just like someone's written a story. They've made a story and they haven't really thought about this. And this person's living a whole life. And they're like, oh, what do they do for work? Magazine editor or something. Or, they're an essayist. Or like, so many times the writer will just self-insert themselves into this character's career. And it means it can be completely unrelated to what the plot is, or it's just a movie about a writer. It's so often the protagonist is a writer, or they'll have some like vague job. I like to make the jobs seem more realistic. There's a lot of jobs in this world, a great many swath of jobs,
mhm.
and so I want to. I try to make most of my stories a little more realistic by picking one out.
Mhm, mhm. Yeah, I love that. And you're absolutely right about characters oftentimes being writers. It's one of the things that um I always kind of roll my eyes at a little bit, and maybe I
Hmm.
shouldn't, but I'm like, ooh, okay. Um And I've been guilty of it myself, of course, writing a character. And I'm like, oh,
Yeah.
of course they love books and they love to read and all of these things. I'm like, okay.
It's just so easy to make a character you already know than come up with a new one.
Hmm. Yeah, no, definitely, definitely. But I love that you're picking out jobs for this and for your other works from the way you were speaking. Now, you mentioned when you were writing this, it kind of inspiration came to you and you wrote it. Is that often how your writing works, where something just like strikes you, or tell me a little bit about just your process in general?
It can be both ways. It can be a lot of the time it'll something will hit me and it could be anything from anywhere. Um, and it could be a scrap of an idea. It can be a line. It can be a whole concept. Like I don't know. Um, but I'll usually throw it in a document like as quick as, or I'll put it in like in my notes, and so I can write it down when I get home or whatever. I'll get just like what I've thought of. I'll put it in a document, and then I'll leave that tab open for a couple days. Sometimes that tab just sits there and nothing happens to it, and then I close it, and maybe in 5 years I'll stumble upon it and be like, that's not bad, and I'll try to work on it. Other times I'll keep adding to that document, and then if it's working, if it's going well, then I'll try to start turning it into something. I'll usually just be mulling it over through the day, sitting on the train or something, or at work, and I'll just like start thinking of stuff. And then, of course, that gets frustrating. I can't be on my phone at work. And then now I'm actually getting somewhere with this. And I feel like I got to get this down and I can't. But yeah, it can come from anywhere. Sometimes it's something, sometimes it's not. Sometimes I'll try to write a story on purpose. Like I'll sit down and try to come up with an idea. And it doesn't work as well, I would say, to like make myself do it. But that's also an option.
Yeah, definitely. Now, when you were saying how you write out these ideas on tabs, and sometimes they go places, sometimes they don't. Do you find it difficult to let go of the ideas that just maybe aren't clicking and aren't working?
Honestly, no. Because if it's in my mind, like if it is gonna be something, if it's something that I'll come back to it sooner or later. It's gonna be in my Google Drive. It's never gonna go away out of there. It could, but in theory, it's not gonna go away. It's gonna be sitting there waiting for me. And oftentimes, if it's not working and I decide it's not working, it's not out of sadness I decide that. It's out of like frustration. Be like, this, I'm getting nowhere with this. This is a waste of my time. I had one idea, and this is the one that comes to mind because I still think it could be a really fun idea. And it was with like American folk heroes, um, go like all like joining up and going into a sort of battle against a bunch of European like myths and folk heroes and stuff. And I and it sounds stupid to say aloud. It sounds like a bad comic book that would not finish its run.
Sounds
And
fun to me. I don't know.
it does sound fun, but then I'm writing it and I'm like, this isn't anything. This is just people meeting each other and then a fight. And like I do think I can come up with something with this for this sooner or later someday. Maybe someone else will because I've just said it. That'd be great. I can't get anywhere with that. But I spent like a week on that one time. And I'm sitting there and I'm coming up with all these like scripts and scenes and plans, and just nothing's happening. This is nonsense. This is a waste of everybody. I'm getting angry at this. So I put it away. And every like 3 months, I'll think of it and I'll be like, maybe I should look at that document, and I'll look at it and like, this is still nothing to me. And maybe it always will be. Maybe not. We're putting it away again. So usually, no. Usually, if something's not working, I'm happy to move on to something else.
Mhm, mhm. That makes sense. That makes sense. That idea vaguely reminds me of a combination of American Gods and like a Marvel film. Just
That's
like hearing
so
you
great
talk
you
about it.
said that because as I was trying to do it, I was like, this is like if American Gods wasn't as good. This is this is
I
like
wasn't
this
saying
is
that, but
no, but that's what I was thinking when I was writing, and then I was like, I've just combined American Gods and Alan Moore's League of Extraordinary Gentlemen. I'm just having them fight. This is I was just like sitting and playing with action figures right now. I'm coming up with nothing. But that's funny that you said American Gods because that's what
Yeah.
because I don't personally I don't like American Gods. I read that book. I thought it wasn't that good. It wasn't my favorite,
Mhm,
but like I don't think it's terrible. But
mhm.
I didn't like it very much. But then I find myself sitting down and writing what is feeling like fan fiction of American Gods, and now I'm getting even angrier.
Oh
I'm just
no.
remaking this book I didn't even like. Whatever. I was glad to get rid of that idea for now.
Mhm, mhm.
It's gonna sit in the drive for a little while longer.
Yeah, one day maybe. Now you mentioned that was a script that you were working on. I'm curious if you could talk a little bit about your like balance of how much fiction do you write versus scripts, screenplays, all that good stuff.
Well, and specifically in that instance with that story, it never turned into. I was trying every avenue. I was like, maybe it can be a book, maybe a comic, maybe a movie, maybe some. Nothing was working for that one. But typically, that is how it goes. If a story's not working at first, I will see if it will work in a different medium. If I'm trying to write a play and it's just like not coming together, this doesn't seem like it would stage well. Then I'll try to convert. I'll be like, well, how would it be as a short story? Or how would it be as a comic book or a TV show? Can I break this up in different ways? Um, Sometimes the idea will come to me as that, as like it'll be like, here's an idea for a movie, and then I'll write a movie, you know. Um, Other times it'd be here's an idea for a book, and then I work on it for 4 months, and I'm like, this is not a good book, and then I'll do a movie instead. Um, it just depends. It depends on the story. I wait for the story to kind of tell me what it is. Um, because things just feel different ways. Things can be portrayed different ways. I think that's I give a lot of grace when I read a book or when I watch a movie or anything that I dislike. Like, would this be better? Like, was this just the wrong medium? Was the writer too stubborn and they really wanted to make a short story out of this and it should have been something else? And a lot of the times it is, a lot of the times it's not. But different mediums cater to different stories better than others. Especially comic book writers will say that a lot. Like that's the because in a comic book you can control the pacing much better than you can with a regular book or with anything else. It's you control what the reader is seeing, what they're reading. But then they also have a lot more power in they can skip around, they can jump over the page, or they can read much slower, much faster. They can spend 10 minutes just looking at the artwork. It's almost a very interactive medium. Um, Meanwhile, a movie's going at the pace the editor makes it go, which oftentimes is very good. There's some great editors. Martin Scorsese's editor, she's famous for, and I can't remember her name, of course, but she's got multiple Oscars. Um, and like a lot of people who've worked with him and on those movies, they say it was made in editing. Like it's a if without this editor, this would have been a nothing film. This would have been the way like just not good. So it depends on the medium, depends on a million things. But I try to consider all those things before I consider a story lost to me, or at least lost to me for now.
Mhm. Yeah, and I love that you have that versatility to do that because I know a lot of people are very practiced, well trained in specific mediums, and
Mhm.
then if they try to branch out, it doesn't click just because it does take a different kind of mindset and a different kind of approach to write
Mhm.
for the stage, for film, for a book, for short stories, all of that. So having that versatility seems like a major asset there.
I think it is. I think it can be. I like to. I try to be as good at as many things as I can be.
Mhm. Mhm. No, that's great. I think that's great. Um, Now you've talked a lot about comic book approaches, kind of considering how things are staged if you're writing a play. Um, and kind of how heavily does the like visual impact of the final product weigh into your writing as you're actually drafting and writing whatever type of project it is?
I feel like this is the beginning of every answer I've given, but it depends on the project.
No worries.
Um, because a lot of the when it comes to especially things like comic books or plays, because these are more, I don't want to say achievable, but more accessible. It's
Mhm.
much easier for me to write a comic book and get it made than it is for me to make a movie. Just a lot more goes into making a movie. So, like, if I'm writing a movie script, I will be more gracious with like what I can put in there. Be like, I'll put a big monster. I'll put some crazy special effects, because if someone's gonna make it, it's not gonna be. It might be me, but like if someone's gonna make it, it's someone with money and capabilities and resources. They can actually put these things together. Meanwhile, when I'm writing a play, if this play's getting staged, I'm the one who's gonna be doing the staging. Like it's gonna be me. So I'm not going to write a play that's got fire on stage. That's hard to make happen. A lot of places won't let you. Fake fire looks bad. It's you think about it. Um, so I wrote a bunch of small plays, a bunch of short plays, like 10 to 20-minute plays recently. I was gonna do them. I was gonna stage them. I'm not right now for a variety of reasons. Um, I'll probably do it next year, I'm thinking. But as I'm writing it, these are all very contained, no crazy costumes, no crazy set. The set is two tables, two chairs, it's stuff that I can get my hands on. I'm not making myself build an animatronic or anything ridiculous. I'm not it's no period pieces where I gotta go find, corsets and capes and things like this. They're all contemporary. They're set in people's houses or like a bar or something. But I still I'm not doing it out of laziness. I'm doing it so it looks good. I'm doing it so it's something that I know can look good. Because if I was to set something in, I don't know, Japan, I would still want it to look good. And now I just have to put a lot more money into making it look like Japan. Meanwhile, if I make it look like Brooklyn, New York 2026, which is what's out my window right now, I can just turn the camera that way, I know what Brooklyn, New York 2026 looks like. I want to make it relies on what's achievable. More than once, I've read a play that's got something in it that is not possible to to put on stage. And sometimes writers will disagree and they'll be like, it actually can be put on stage. And maybe it can. Maybe it can on Broadway or the West End. It cannot be put on stage at the world's cheapest black box theater with 25 seats in there, It's you just need to know what you are capable of doing because every every project, everything, you're going to have to make allowances. You're going to have to compromise your vision in some capacity. I would rather compromise my vision while I'm writing it so I can adjust it to make it as best as it can be as early in the process as I can, rather than change it tech week, right before opening. If I have a story where something is I need an explosion on stage, I have to know with the knowledge while I'm writing, it's not going to be a Michael Bay C4 explosion. It's going to be a bunch of crumpled up tissue paper and you throw it, or a big like flash of orange light or something. It's not going to be an explosion. And if I write an explosion in and I get all the way until staging, and then the director's like, so how do you want this explosion to look? And then I get really, and I'm like, it's an explosion. What do you think I want it to look like? I want fire and smoke on stage. Now everybody's upset because we can't do that. I don't want to change it. Now they have to deal with me being mad. I'd rather change it as soon as type in the word explosion. I gotta sit back and be like, all right, that's not gonna happen. Maybe it happens off stage. Maybe it's maybe they fall down rather than getting exploded. You're going to have to make these allowances and these compromises. And my idea is the earliest you can do that, that's gonna make it look better later on. Because if I'm writing a script today And I start thinking right now, if I want to make a short film and I want something to happen in this short film that I know I do not have the power to do in the free version of iMovie that came with my computer. If I think about that today, I'm like, how can I do this in the free version of iMovie that comes with my computer? And I figure that out. It's better than filming this whole thing. And I finally sit down to edit it. And now I have this big gap right in the middle of the movie where there's this thing I never was able to figure out. I just kept pushing it off. And now I need to completely cut all around it and change the narrative. So the how it looks is ultimately the most important thing. Um, Less so in prose, short stories and books, but for a comic book or for a movie or for a play or for a TV show. It is at the end of the day the most important thing. It's what people go. People will stay for the writing, but they're coming because it's going to look like something. People will read a comic book with bad artwork. It might be harder to get them there, but they will read it if the writing is good. They will not if it can be the most beautiful artwork in the world. They might look at it. They might stand there in the store and hold it up and admire the cover. They're not going to hang it on their wall because it's not a good story. It's the most important thing is how it's going to look. But you have to you have to know that it's not going it will not. Pretty much 0% of the time is it going to look like how you first imagine it, just because of the laws of physics more than anything else. Um, Everything in your life, you've taken your phone to take a picture of something, and then on the screen, it is not framed the way you thought it was going to be. And you're like, I guess, I guess I'll take this picture like it is. No, you could go out and buy a $400 camera and a $2,000 lens and try to replicate it. But you just have to know what's in your capabilities. The end product, the final visual, should be considered as early as possible so you can be as satisfied as you can be when you finally get around to having that. And I think that's what I think that answered the question.
I love that whole thought process. I definitely answered the question. I'll be honest, I don't fully remember what the question was, but it
Who knows?
provided many avenues of
I said a bunch of
conversation.
other stuff.
Amazing. Um, I have two questions to follow up with that. I'm going to ask you the one that I think might be a shorter divergence first, and then we'll
Okay,
go back to
okay.
the other one if I remember it.
Mhm.
Um, but the first question is, you were talking about kind of a little bit of like the freedom in fiction, how you don't have to consider like production value when you're writing a short story. It's all
Mhm.
kind of all up to the words matching the reader's imagination and the author's imagination. Um, is that what drew you to fiction writing in the first place, or did you kind of come to it from another avenue?
I would say it's definitely part of it because you can get crazier in that. If you go to a short film festival, it's going to be a bunch of like dramatic romances because that's easy to film. If you read a if you go to the library, they have a whole room dedicated to fantasy because it's easier to put it in a book. Um, that's part of it. I do remember more specifically, though, the main thing that drew me to writing short stories is they're easier to get published. Um, it's much easier to have someone publish 10 pages than 300. Um, Less lucrative oftentimes, but easier to just get things out there. I think one of the most important things to do is to get things made. You don't want to work 10 years on your masterpiece and then nobody buys it and now you have it because you have nothing to show.
Mhm.
Like you're like, well, I've worked on this and now they won't read it. But it's there's a line. You don't want to just make a bunch of stupid stuff that sucks and put it out there. And because now what you're pointing at is a bunch of slop. You want to work on stuff, but work on as many things as you can. Um, the Nirvana, the band, the show, the
Yeah.
Nirvana, the band, the show, the movie. Um,
Mhm.
the guys whose names I can't remember. It's Jay McCarroll is the
Mhm.
brown-haired one, and then the other one, the one I'm gonna say something about, whose name I can't remember. Which I think he would find hysterical. But he recently said in an interview for when during their Nirvana, the band, the show, the movie press, he was saying, make a lot of good stuff. don't make one perfect thing because it's hard to do. It's almost impossible. It might be impossible. And if you make enough good stuff, sooner or later someone will want you to make that one perfect thing. So put out stuff that's good, and it's easy to do that in short stories. It's easy to put together something small and something easy and something that you're still very proud of. And you can do it time and time again. It's just building up goodwill, really.
Mhm. Yeah, I love that advice. I love that advice. I feel like there are so many, I've come across so many people, and I love all of these people, love most of these people. Kidding. Um, but who have all of these amazing ideas, and they're like, oh, I want to write this, and I have this book idea I've been thinking about for years, and then they haven't actually done it. And I understand how daunting it is. But like you were saying, and that's amazing advice, it's just you have to create things. For people to see the things, you have to create the things. Um, and I think that's something that a lot of people have trouble getting over, that first hurdle of just create something good.
Yeah, that's what Tick Tick Boom is about. The musical, the movie. I don't know if you've seen the movie,
I've not.
but it's also essentially a true story. Jonathan Larson, who wrote Rent, he is spent years and years and years on this musical of his, and it was absolutely fantastic. It was like an incredible piece of work, but it never got made because it was just too big, and he was just some nobody. He was some guy who'd written one musical that like probably would have been good, but no one's going to invest hundreds of thousands of dollars into some guy who's never made anything else. And the advice he gets, like puts on this workshop, and everyone loves it. And his manager says everyone can't wait to see what he does next. He's like, "What do you mean next?" She's like, "No one's buying this. No, you're nobody. Work on the next thing, get the next idea, put something out. Keep working, making more stuff." And it's like a lesson he obviously learns through that show. Um, and everyone I think has to learn it to some degree. But I like to think I was able to watch that movie. I've never seen it on stage, but watch that movie and like get that same lesson. Be like, let's not spend my whole life working on one great epic thing. Let's try to put out something nice. And then one day maybe I'll be in the position to make that one great epic thing I'm hoping to make.
Mhm, mhm. Definitely, definitely one day. Um, this kind of perfectly came full circle around to the other question that I had.
Amazing.
Yeah, I would love to hear about your experience with actually producing plays and putting things on in the production aspects of it. Mhm,
Well, that's I'm yet to put on one of my own. I'm kind of putting on one of my own now. I'm doing a table read um for a play I wrote. I am doing it this month. I hired actors already. I rented the space. I sent the script out yesterday or the day before. That's not exactly the same because it is a table read. And at the end of the day, I was doubling up roles. I'm just because I need to get as few people in there as possible because I don't have any money. I got to pay these people. So everyone's playing like 2 to 5 roles in this thing. um, which is fine. I got it down to 9 people rather than what the script calls for, which is like with no doubling, it's like 27, something ridiculous. There would be doubling realistically if I was to stage it as well, and it would be down to like 16 or something, but I pulled it down to 9. Um, I mean, this is already answering the question. The number one thing is money. I don't have any, and it's not coming from. I don't have any investors. I don't have any producers. This is my money from my near minimum wage job that I work most days of the week. It's it's that's the answer to the question. It's hard to put something on stage. It's hard to make something happen. I've made short films back like a year. Is that a year now? Might have been 2 uh, when I had some money to spare, when I thought I did, because now I don't. I had it then, could have kept it, but I had it then, and I had some money to spare, and I made like 5 short films in a few days. I was visiting my family. I had for like 10 days. I was like, need something to do while I'm there. They all got jobs, and just be sitting around the house. Um, so I made 5 short films, and like one and a half of them are any good. It's you not everything's gonna be great, especially in the medium I did it, where I was just like pumping them out, all of them at the same time together. Doesn't really cater to great material, but it was when I was available and it was when I had the time and the money to do it. So you make it work. And I got some good stuff out of it. I got like a good little docu film and a good little narrative short film. Um, but I mean, I've put things on obviously in regulars as jobs. I'm a prop artist mostly is what I do, and I do carpentry. Um, and every production has its ups and downs. Every single one of them has some advantages that other ones don't have. Often that has to do with the venue, often has to do with who's producing it, who's putting it together. Um, Sometimes you have people with big ideas that don't quite correspond with the resources we have. Sometimes you have people who are thinking too small. And then you have to kind of like be like, well, what if we also did this? And you put it together. Um, I was doing carpentry for this off-Broadway show, which is just like a little side job I do sometimes, it's one of the best paying jobs I've got, but it also only happens once every like 4 months. So I'm really excited when I get to do it. Um, so I actually, in fact, I've only worked at that with those people 2 times this year. It was putting the show together, and then the other day it was taking it down. Um, but it was putting it together. It was back in like January, February, and I was just being a carpenter on this show. Just a stage carpenter, putting up a wall, putting some chairs together, sweeping, nothing thrilling. Um, but then I've done that before, some similar things. But then the head carpenter had to go do another job, and then they still needed a carpenter. They didn't think they were going to need a carpenter this late into the thing, and they're like, "Are you available?" And I absolutely was. Nothing else going on. Was so grateful to be there for the days they had me. Um, And so I stayed for like another week and a half just as like the stand-in production carpenter, which was exciting, first of all. Um, but it was interesting to see it like later in the process with it was not a huge budget, but it was made by a fairly famous man, and he brought all his like famous friends to work on it. All his like, famous in the industry. I'm not talking A-listers in Hollywood. I'm talking famous for off Broadway. But they were like very renowned design. They were all very old because they've been in this game for a long time. Good designers. Um, and it was interesting to, navigate this big kind of big for what it was kind of show, but it was also a very simple show. It was pretty much just monologues, people standing on. There was almost no blocking. It was very long. There's two intermissions, but like it's a very, very simple script. That's not true. It's a very complex script. But staging what it requires from a carpenter is not very much. But so they would really nail down these very little details because they could, we don't this chair is going to be on stage the whole show. We wanted to make sure it's a good looking chair. Meanwhile, you do something any other show, basically, you put on Oklahoma, you've got stuff going on and off stage the whole time, and like you can't focus on these little minute details. So it's different to learn. You do a big musical with 10 sets and a thousand props. You really just do what you can do and finish it in time. You do a play where you have the same amount of time to put it together, but this whole stage is 4 chairs. You're going to be building and taking these chairs apart twice a day, every day, which is what I was doing. I was just putting chairs. We were ordering new chairs, putting them together, doing it over and over until they finally had chairs they liked. So it all has to do with time and money and production scale, production value. But it can be hard, and it can also be very fun. If it wasn't fun, I wouldn't be doing it. But and it also helps for me to do these other people should like see how it works, and then I know how I do it. And I sent an email out to all these actors I hired. I only knew how to format that email at all because I'd received so many emails like this in the past. It's all about learning and putting it on, but it also is all about all about in a wider sense, learning about it and doing what you love. All about it in a practical sense. It's about money and it's about time.
Mhm.
You have to know what you've got and don't try to exceed that because you can't.
Mhm. Mhm.
That's what
Yeah.
I've learned.
Yeah, no, that's interesting. I have not really thought about the carpentry aspect of putting on a play, and I wouldn't have thought of we need to focus on the chairs so late in the game and like spend that much time on them. That's interesting. That's really interesting to think about. Mhm.
Someone's got to put it together.
Yeah, yeah, no, absolutely, absolutely. And I imagine that your experience in kind of prop and set design influences the way that you write then as well.
100% it does. Well, and I'll make the same mistakes that I would get mad about in person if I was putting this together. The play that I'm doing the table read of is I don't like a unit set. You know, a unit set is when there's like one thing on stage the whole time.
Mhm.
And like you
Mhm.
might have a thing come on and off, but it's mostly the same stuff. And it works a lot. But I don't love them just in general, and so I try not to write them. But that also means now you need a lot of wing space for things to come on. You need like wagons to come on and bring different stuff. And that's a nightmare in real life. It's terrible to do, to be the person backstage running that things on and off, having all those things built, directing it. Nightmare. Every time I write a play, that's what I'm writing. I'm, I'm like, this can only be done in the theater with a lot of wing space because there's going to be a lot of stuff coming on and off. And that's an example of me not learning my lesson every single time. That's one thing I cannot get in my head. Um, but oftentimes, yes, it'll be like if I need something that I know as a prop artist would be hell on earth to build, I will change that in my script. I'll be like, I know how this works. I know how hard this is. If I have a costume that like I know how to sew. If what I have in mind and I'm putting in the script is not an easy project, I will alter it. I will change it for the simplicity of the designer, which the designer who in the future one day I hope would appreciate that. And then if they want to go crazier with it, they can go crazier with it. If they've got the time and the money and whatever, the experience, make it crazier. You know, it's also good to when you're writing, especially a script, the whole thing is you have to leave room for the director to direct. You do in a book, you put every step, every stage. You can put everything as much or as little as you want. In a script, you need to leave some space, leave some gaps. You're not going to sit there and spend 3 pages detailing what this jacket looks like. You're going to let the costume designer pick out a nice jacket. You're going to say the color and maybe the style, and then they get to go out shopping for the jacket. So you have to be aware of the collaborative nature of things, and you don't want those designers to hate you. Not that I've ever hated any of the writers of the things I'm working on, but I've certainly had moments, moments
Yeah.
where I wish they would have spent a little more time on that paragraph.
No, definitely. I can imagine. I can imagine. I do feel like since you kind of know the rules and quotes, know what goes into it, you can play around with it a little bit more.
Yeah,
So
you got to know the
yeah.
rules to break them.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Um, yeah, so I have two kind of questions. I have my notes over here, so if I'm glancing
Nice.
off to the side, that's why. Um,
No problem.
but yeah, yeah. So I have two questions. One is connected to something you said, so we'll start there. The other one is something I'm going to ask about only because we talked before and you talked about it then. I don't want to talk about it this time.
Okay, okay.
Um, but the first one is I'm curious about kind of like what it's like working in New York City because New York City is a place where there's always theater happening, there's always art and just kind of like it has that vibe, for lack of a better word. And I imagine that is both amazing and really hard at the same time. So I'd love to hear your
Absolutely.
perspective.
It is amazing. I'm going to tell you about one of the hard ones first, and I didn't tell you about this when we were talking before.
Okay.
Um, it was soon after I moved here. It was like 3 or 4 months. I was still new, and I was trying to find prop jobs. And I applied to this. like no budget short film. I was gonna get like I think $100 for 3 weeks of filming, and like, whatever. I know what I'm getting into. Got to get some credits. But I applied to it, and I was shortlisted. He was like, "I like your work," and we were talking for a little while. And I didn't hear anything for a few days, and so I messaged him. I was like, "Hey, how's it looking?" And he was like, "Sorry, I went ahead and hired someone else." I was like, happens, whatever. You move on. But I was, might as well. Well, I've had a little bit of a back and forth with this guy. We got a little bit of a chemistry here. It was like, would you mind telling me like what I can do different? What should I work on? Is there anything I should like emphasize? Like what got me on your short list and then what took me off of it? And then he said all these nice things and he was like, you really were a good fit. I just ended up hiring this guy instead. And maybe he shouldn't have told me who he hired, professionally, but he told me the name. And it was a name I was like, I feel like I've heard this name before. And I looked it up. This guy worked on both the first two Guardians of the Galaxy movies. And not like as nobody, he wasn't like someone's assistant. He was like one of the guys on there. And I was like, that's who I'm going up against? Those are my your options were me or Marvel Cinematic Universe name did work. Are you kidding me? That's my competition. How do I, and also a bit bleak for the future if this guy's working on two Guardians of the Galaxy movies and then is making $100 for 3 weeks of work on some no budget horror short film. That was off-putting, to say the least. Um, Alternatively, it is very cool because now I am working on these off-Broadway shows. As a carpenter mainly now, but last year I had title billing. I was on the posters. I was the prop supervisor on a Anne Washburn show. Anne Washburn, if you don't know, she did Mr. Burns, which is a pretty famous show. Pretty, yeah, it's taught. Um, that was an exciting one. Boots Riley, who made I Love Boosters and Sorry to Bother You, just recently there was an article about him. His next project was going to be, and maybe still is going to be, an adaptation of Mr. Burns, her show. So this was exciting. Um, and now this is less creative, but it was still a hard job to get, and a lot of people try to get it and don't. I'm an usher on Broadway. I'm the one who tells you you see that number and letter on your ticket, and I tell you where that seat is. Which, isn't the most glamorous thing in the world, but it's Broadway. I get to, I'm doing a matinee and an evening show today. I forget exactly where. I'm looking at my calendar. I'm working at Death of a Salesman today, and then be The Great Gatsby tonight. I get to watch these shows, and it's very fun, and I wouldn't be able to do that in other places. Now, as a creative, it's got its ups and downs as well because there's a million spaces and a million actors, and there's like you have everything is here to work for all of the resources and all the materials and all the people and all the everything is here in the city. The problem is everyone else in the city is also using all those same things. That's why everyone's here. It's why I'm here, and it's why everybody else is here too. Um, so it can be a it's a different sort of competition. If I was doing this in Dayton, Ohio, it's going to be tougher to find people and places and things to do this. Dayton, Ohio, where I'm from, it'd be harder to find actors, but the actors I do find are going to be much more interested in the project because they don't get a lot of opportunities in Dayton, Ohio. Meanwhile, the actors, and I'm sure it's going to happen with like two or three of them. The actors I'm hiring for this table read, I know in the next week or two, someone's going to be like, hey, I booked a job for more money on that day. And I'm not going to be mad about that because that's what they should do. They shouldn't be working for me for $50. I'm giving them $50. It's for 5 hours. That's $10 an hour. That's nothing. That's not. If you find anything for $11 an hour, you should take it. And that's unfortunate for me. It's inconvenient, but I'll try to find somebody else, and I probably will find somebody else. So it's different challenges that kind of at the end of the day end up being the same challenges of everyone is here. but also everyone is here.
Yeah, having that kind of dynamic where it seems double-edged sword
Mhm.
for sure,
Yeah,
for
yeah,
sure.
grass is always greener.
Definitely. Now I did want to ask, this is not the original second question that I had.
Okay, go ahead.
But when you're looking for actors, when you were getting actors for the table read, how do you go about that?
I did a post on Backstage, um, which is a website specifically for that. And I didn't give a ton of information just because it's a table read. I gave the characters and brief character descriptions. Um, and then I just wait for the submissions to come in. And then it depends on the project and who is looking at it, and there's a million things. But I basically narrowed it down to uh I need to see some footage of you acting. And for a table read, it is just at the end of the day, you're really just seeing how long it takes to read this whole show, how people might interpret some of these lines, if these lines are working, if I need to change that. It's like an editing experiment, really. Um, so you don't need to do the Gone with the Wind audition every woman in the country to find the perfect Scarlett O'Hara. You know, you need to find someone who's available on the day and isn't terrible. So I was just, I'd find if they have a demo reel, I'd watch the demo reel. If they have like a link to an Instagram, I'd go look at their Instagram videos, make sure they know how to read and talk. So it's not super selective, or at least for this project. But you still want someone who's good. I had like two or three roles where I just was nobody was really working. And so I went out and like messaged people. I went and searched up talent and messaged them and was like, hey, would you be interested in this? And a few of them said yes. And so it's again working within your means. I know I'm not expecting Matt Damon to come down for any of these reads. Um, Nor would I want him to for this show. I don't think he's right for any of these roles anyways. But you for a table read, you're I'm offering very little, so I'm not expecting everyone's A game. I'm sure that's what they're going to bring me because they're not going to accept a project they're not interested in. But it's tapering my expectations. But I am very happy with everyone I've cast so far, and I do think they're all going to do a very good job. And I wouldn't have cast them if I didn't think they were going to do a very good job, especially when I do am able to like have options in a place like New York where there's so many people. And that even if they're not applying, the catalog of actors, there's thousands of them. It's like 10,000 per page, and there's like 40 pages or something ridiculous. So there's always more people to look at, and I think I've gotten actors I'm very happy with. I'm having conversations with some of them this week, some of them next week. Um, so that's yeah. I don't know if that even answers the question, but I guess it answers the question specifically for this project I'm doing right now. I got people that I am happy with, which is the goal.
Absolutely. That's awesome. That's definitely awesome. And you'll have that to kind of like look back on and work with in the future
Yes,
once
always have it
you.
for reference.
Yeah, yeah, amazing. Now the thing that we had talked about a little bit last time that I wanted to touch on, if I remember right, yes, I have it in my notes, is kind of the process of publishing scripts, having scripts published for other people to kind of put on and produce. I know we had
Mhm.
talked a little bit about the considerations you put into that. I would love if you could talk about it again.
I would love to. Um, and this is ultimately all speculative because I haven't had a script published. But from what I'm learning in this process is I've catered these last two scripts, specifically one of them, to being published, which is something I can semi recommend. I'll real quickly go on a
Yeah.
separate thing. My when I was writing short stories, I was writing them and I was having trouble finding somewhere to submit them to. And so I was finally like, you know what? I'm going to find something that's taking submissions. I'm going to write something specifically for that. I'm going to meet their theme. So I'll do it exactly right. And I did that. And then that magazine closed submissions 2 days early. And I was livid. I was so mad. And so then I just went on Instagram and I searched literary magazine and I found the first one. I submitted it to it. I was like, yeah, maybe they'll take it. And this guy responded in like an hour. He was like, looks perfect. We'll take it.
Nice,
That's
amazing.
100 subtexts. It's a literary magazine that is very accepting and welcoming. So I recommend him. Um, but so I was catering. And so I did that. I'm doing that with this. I wrote a children's play. Um, and children's plays are often going to be put on by children, meaning schools and youth theater organizations and stuff like this. And far more often than not, maybe always, there are more girls than boys in these organizations, in these clubs, um, which is just the way it goes right now these days. And so you want stories, or I know when I was in high school, the drama director, she was always looking for scripts that had very big casts because she didn't like to cut anyone and we had a very big club. So she was always looking for things that had like crowd scenes or like a bunch of small roles that are there for like a scene or something. Um, and so that's kind of what I was specifically catering to is like I have 3 or 4 different locations in this play where like there needs to be some background characters. That can mean 2, that can mean 40, depends what you have in your availability. Um, but I leave it open for that. It's generally the way I've had it written is it's a heavy female heavy cast. There's like 4 or 5 male characters, and the rest are female of like a 25-ish character show. I can't quite remember the numbers. Um, it's very female heavy, but also what I've done is I've made every role. I've written it one way for simplicity of reading and for because it's a fantasy mythology based. So a lot of these characters, like Hermes is there. These are just characters that aren't really characters. They're things that exist in life and history and religion. Um, but I've made every role gender malleable. It can be anything. I've added a page at the beginning of the script, be like, here's alternative names. It can go either or any gender for these characters. Um, so then, if some all boys school somewhere wants to put it on, they can still do it because all the roles there's male names that can be attributed to all the characters. Um, and then if an all girls school wants to do it, there's names for the male characters to be turned into female characters. So that's uh I haven't tried publishing that one. I did like it one place, but I haven't done it much because I also want to do a table read with that. Um, but that one's going to be slightly bigger and more difficult, so I wanted to do the easier one first so I could ease myself into these table reads. Um, but it is not necessarily important, or it's definitely not necessary, but I think it is helpful and probably smart to cater what you're writing to someone who's going to buy it. If you write something like the Ten Commandments, like the movie from way back when, I don't know if you've seen that movie, but it's 4 hours long and there's a million people in it. There's so many because he's taking the Jews from Egypt and there's all of them. You see them all there. There's so many people. They had cast so many extras. And that's something that's not only like not done in movies at all today. They would never do that right now, cast that many people and hire that many people. But so it's not maybe not the wisest thing to write into your script is if you like are requiring a scene where there's 1 million real people on screen. You have to cater a little bit to what people are going to buy and what they're going to want. And I know currently in the current state of uh, high school theater, they're looking for female heavy casts. And different schools will want smaller casts or bigger casts, but in at least my experience, they've wanted bigger casts so we can cut as few people as possible. Especially good for musicals like a big dance number I did in the Heights when I was in high school as well at a theater organized called Muse Machine in Dayton, Ohio. And we had so many kids because like it's a block party in that show. There's like a club. The 4th of July. Everyone's having fun. There's so many people on stage dancing. They want a big cast. So that's what I've been working on is shows that I know people will want. Maybe not necessarily shows that I know people will want, but casts that I know people will want. Female heavy, gender malleable, um, and obviously family friendly, kid friendly. Not a lot of sense in doing, Death of a Salesman, which I'm working on today on Broadway. There's three women in that show, and two of them are there for one scene. There's four actually. Anyways, two of them are there for one scene, and then it's a very male cast. It depends on what you're doing, who's putting it on. But I always try to make sure that there is at least not necessarily an audience because that's a whole different conversation. But there is a crew somewhere that can put this on. There's a cast somewhere that is interested in this,
Mhm.
a club, an organization.
Mhm.
I think it's a good idea to cater to what people need and what people want and
Mhm.
what they're willing to pay for.
Mhm. Yeah, yeah, and I absolutely love the distinction you made just then, the difference between looking for a crew versus looking for an audience, because I feel like audience is something that comes up a lot in all forms of writing. Who is the audience for this?
Mhm.
Who is the end goal, the here? But with both kind of TV, film, and stage production, the actual audience that's kind of sitting in the seats and watching it is like a secondary audience almost. You're looking to get it to the primary audience of who will produce this, who will stage it, who will put it
Mhm.
on. So I love that distinction because it's something that's really unique to script writing that I don't think really happens anywhere else.
Yeah, I say it is heavier in script writing. I think it does happen in definitely surely not in short stories because a
Mhm.
short story audience is anyone who will read it
Yeah.
because it's pretty rare someone gives up on a story that's 5 pages.
Mhm.
Um, but for like books and for scripts, yeah, it's very different who's going to buy this. And books it is different too because they are really buying it for an audience specifically. But like a play, you need something that a director is going to want to direct because they got to spend months directing it. They want to have a good time too.
Mhm.
So yeah, it almost is like two audiences, one that is willing to make it and one that is willing to watch it.
Mhm, mhm. Definitely, definitely. It's an interesting way to think about it, for sure. Now, I wanted to check in really, really quickly. I have kind of two more questions left that are very kind of like the generic I ask everyone questions.
Sure.
But I wanted to see, is there anything else that you wanted to talk about that we haven't had a chance to talk about yet?
That's a good question. And think something you'd think I would have thought about in advance. Something
No
I would.
worries, no worries. I always just check because sometimes people will be like, "Oh, I have this thing I wanted to like promote," or "Oh, we didn't even talk about this other facet of my life that actually really contributes."
Yeah.
So,
No, I don't think there's much I want to promote. I have an Instagram account. It's got bunch of little one-panel comics on there, a lot of short stories I've had published in the past. I've put on there. I think both of the best short films that I made are on there. Not good ones. I think they've all got some good aspects to them. But the best one's called The Dam, is the fiction narrative one, and one called Travel by Bus, which I took a bus to and from Ohio from New York. And so I interviewed some people on the way. That's all on my Instagram, Trey Blevins underscore writing. Yeah,
okay, awesome. Then, yeah, that is already at least partially an answer to one of the other two questions I had,
right.
which was just kind of where can our listeners find
Where
you?
can they find
And
you? Yeah.
yeah, yeah, exactly.
That's where on Instagram.com.
Perfect, perfect. And I can put a link to your Instagram page on the
That'd be
description of
great.
this as well. So we have descriptions and links, and it's a wonderful tool.
Amazing.
But yeah, and that kind of brings me to my last question, the generic question I ask everyone. If you could give any advice to someone who's looking to either start writing or enter the industry, what advice would you give them?
I I'm glad you asked me this right now because I just saw some things recently on some articles that came out, and it's about a lot of filmmakers. Will their advice will be like make the movie, whatever it takes, make the movie, and that is good advice. However, it's really easy for them to say. It's easy for millionaires to say. Uh, so I would say make the movie you can more than the movie you want. I would love to write a superhero movie. Because I don't love the ones that are being made right now necessarily. I'm not a huge fan. I think it could be done better in different ways. That's what I want to make. I can't make that. I can't, I can't do that. Uh, but I can make short films. I can make very grounded, realism. I can do little narrative docs. I make the movie, still movies you enjoy and movies you like, but make the movies you can. Because at the end of the day, making stuff is the important. You can't just hope. You can't wait for it to fall into your lap because it simply isn't going to. Something may fall into your lap after you've made some stuff. Someone might discover you and be like, "Hey, well, you want to make a $10 million movie?" And now you're into something. That's not going to happen today if you've never done anything. Make stuff that you like and that you can make. That's the advice. Don't make stuff that don't get in over your head, which is easy to do. You can do that later, but when you're starting, not then.
Absolutely amazing advice. Thank you so much for that advice and for being here and talking with me today. It's been really great.
Of course. Thank you.